Hey everybody, yes, welcome back to the Paid Search Podcast. My name is Jason Rothman. As always, I'm joined by the great Chris Schaefer. He is locked and loaded today and ready to go. Chris, you're fired up.
Yeah.
Still wearing a hoodie.
Oh, yeah.
It's still 1997 somewhere, but you look great for 1997. How's it going today?
Jason, you want to know how old I am? You want me to tell you how old I am without telling you how old I am? You see this right here? And if you can see it, says Help Outs. I'm wearing a sweater, and you see it's the Help Outs logo right there. This was like 2015, something like that. Google started this thing called Google Help Outs. I thought it was so cool. I jumped on board. I was doing this thing where people paid money to talk to someone, and they had this whole platform. That was back in the day, how Google would come up with some idea and then drop it in like 2 months. They launched Google Help Outs, and you would click a button to hire a professional in any topic, whatever you wanted. In the whole platform, you'd pay right there, and you'd get like 15 minutes or an hour. You'd pay by the minute, and then the money would come straight to you as the helper, and the person looking for help would pay. It was amazing. Wow. And I did it all the time. I was getting lots of clients through there. I was helping people, consulting people, of course, with Google Ads. And they sent me this wonderfully soft, I've always loved it. It's super soft hoodie.
Help out?
Help out. One word. Google Help Out. It was super cool.
I vaguely remember that. And then what happened? It just went away.
Oh, yeah. It didn't cut it. It wasn't profitable enough. People weren't using it enough. I don't know. I thought it was awesome.
There's been a lot of, around that time, a lot of like pay by the minute, talk to an expert kind of things. And at least in my experience, it doesn't seem like any of them really took off the way people were planning. Because it does make sense in your mind, like, hey, this is a problem people have. They want to talk to people. It should work. But they never seem to catch for whatever reason.
I thought it was awesome. I got lots of like positive reviews, and I was enjoying it. It was really cool because I would talk to people around the world, and it was always video. You had to do video. Oh. So it was forced, that you had to install a camera and everything to do it. And so I was.
They should have just waited a few years, and then 2020 business might have picked up.
Yeah, that's true. Help outs would be. It might be even more popular since so many people are used to doing.
You know what I think it is, honestly, and this is what it's like to have my brain, and it's nice to have my brain.
It is.
I already know what the problem is. Most people who need information and want to talk to someone for 5 minutes, blah, 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 there's now something called the internet, and there's a lot of information on there, and there's social media and Twitter, and you can just hit people up and ask people. A lot of information out there when you need just a little bit or kind of low value information.
Yeah.
Ain't nobody paying for that anymore.
Yeah.
And then on the high side, if you need legitimate information, extremely valuable information, very, very custom to your situation information, you're not just going to click a button and start paying by the minute. You want to know the person. You want to know they can solve exactly what you're looking for. So I just don't think there's a market for that like middle ground kind of information. It's either very low and it's free, or it's very high and it's custom, and it requires the time and effort to find the right person. Any other problems anybody else needs solved today? Because
it's on fire.
The way it works for me. That's the positive of how this brain works. But the negative, Chris, is I know these things before every other person knows them. So sometimes people don't accept that, and they have to work through their own multiple week, multiple month, 30-year marriage process to get there. And it's very, very difficult for me to communicate when that's happening. I'm learning to do that better every single day. Part of it is maybe giving people compliments.
Yeah.
Chris,
boy. Here we go.
Sweatshirt.
Oh boy.
Looks great.
Oh, okay.
See the way I brought it all back?
That's
how to win friends and influence people. I think that's the name of the book.
Yeah. There we go.
A few hundred pages. You know what it all comes down to, Chris? Give people compliments. They like that. That's one of the things it comes down to. And you can win friends and influence people. So I can hopefully win over my podcast partner every week and influence them without them knowing it.
Yeah. Years and years of marriage have taught me that. Just be nice. Do the little things. Be nice. It is powerful. It's true. Everybody wants to be your friend.
Are we do have the Patreon show. We are going to make some interesting announcements on that going forward soon. But is one of the announcements that we're starting a second Patreon about marriage? From the husband point of view. I mean, it seems to come up a lot.
I think we should, maybe we just stay on the line together and just hit the record button and then just immediately jump into Jason and Chris. The other podcast can have your name first. Jason and Chris, why life sucks, and we just talk about the difficulties.
I just thought of the word wife swap. Isn't that the TV show?
Yeah, that's
legit. I gotta Google that because if that's not like a network TV show,
it is. Yeah,
it just sounds very weird. Well, what I'm thinking of, 7 seasons. What I was thinking of is like before 2020, things were so not like I don't know. They were just not serious to a large extent. We were getting pretty decadent, pretty relaxed, pretty everyone's got a good kind of thing, and it was just getting sloppy. I think one example of that would be like a wife swap television show where that becomes a thing. Another thing, and Cynthia said this to me the other day, and it really made me laugh, and she was like, do you remember a time from, I don't know if it was our childhood or our teenage years or one day before coronavirus, but people were getting in fights and getting shot over chicken sandwiches. And every day new videos were popping up. And I had me a good laugh about that because, Chris, do you remember how big of a deal that was?
Yeah.
And that was actually a real thing. It was a real thing. People were really getting hurt. And every day, and I would watch compilation videos on YouTube, and it would be like legitimately 38 minutes in a row of fights over chicken sandwiches. And then the world got serious.
Then
and I feel like that was the peak of like just how bad and sloppy and lazy things had gotten. Like it was getting pretty decadent out there. And then boom, we got hit with the real problem.
That's true. Yeah.
But I think it was like it must have been like maybe a couple months before, but it feels like it was like the last memory I have in the pre-world, and now we're in the post-world.
Post-world, yep. Post-world, that's true. Bring in enough death and nothing's funny anymore, and you start thinking about real stuff.
Yep. So, Chris, let's get into this week's topic and start talking about Google Ads here. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about the 8 types of keywords in Google Ads. 8 might be a weird number for some people, but we're going to be talking about keywords in a little bit different way, kind of just basically what we're experiencing these days with Google Ads when it comes to the types of keywords that you can advertise for. So we'll be getting into those 8 types of keywords, pros and cons, things to look out for. But before that, I want to read this week's 5-star review of the week. We thank you all very much for leaving these reviews. They help us grow the show because when the podcast platforms see more reviews and positive reviews, they share the show with more people who might be interested. So this week's review of the week is titled Good Guys, 5 stars. It comes from Johnny. He says, as a digital marketer who does work in a few different services at an agency, I'm always looking for ways to keep learning. The problem is most of the people who frame themselves as digital marketing gurus are absolute snake oil selling frauds.
Nice.
And the few legit people are boring. These guys are very knowledgeable and aren't boring. Now, if I could find someone who makes content about SEO that doesn't make my ears bleed, I'll have gotten somewhere.
Oh, man. Hey.
That's just a very honest review and a very...
I identify.
We've all had those feelings.
With
so
that,
I appreciate that.
I feel the same way. If you look up like how to succeed in Google Ads on YouTube and you start clicking and watching videos, you got to go take a shower. You're just like, oh, gosh, that was dirty. That felt so slimy. Yeah. Covered in snakes. So, guys, you want to be shiny and clean. You want to glisten like the morning sun. Opteo.com/PSP2. That's OPTEO.com/PSP2 for a special deal to try out our only recommended software to getting things done faster in Google Ads. This tool is a online software. All right. So you create an account, you log in, you have your accounts, whether you're working with 1, 15, or 1,500 accounts, you log in and all of your accounts are in front of you. And then it prioritizes your tasks, areas that it sees that are of concern to you, and it gives you a priority list. This is incredibly valuable because there's one thing that we all are limited on, time. Time is your issue. You need to be performing at a better efficiency, and this tool is designed to get that done for you. It doesn't do it for you. It helps you get it done faster. So it's not a push button, well, optimize it for you. No, we don't believe in that. We believe that you're smart, that you can get it done. That's why you're listening to us, because we tell you how to do it. This tool shows you how to do it. So check it out, optio.com/PSP2 for an 8-week free trial. Use the chat box down in the bottom right-hand corner to ask for that special trial. Tell them that you heard about it on the Paid Search Podcast.
Okay, thanks, Chris. So yeah, we've got the 8 types of keywords in Google Ads. We're not talking about match types today. I think what's happened is there's obviously been many changes in Google Ads recently. We talked about it last week with the ad rank changes. And I think one thing I'm seeing running Google Ads accounts is that the difference in performance between match types has definitely gotten a lot smaller, if it even exists anymore, obviously excluding very loose modified broad or pure broad. And also the amount of control we have when we run match types in terms of like, okay, I want this exact search to be the one that I show on. And then you look at the search terms and it's not. That's obviously changed as well, the control. So I think for me, Chris, I've definitely been humbled recently, both with seeing, kind of realizing the lack of control we have sometimes, but more so seeing, now that I'm seeing more things because of that lack of control, seeing more search terms, seeing more match types working as we experiment with them, I've been humbled into thinking that it's not just about low funnel keywords, and you can actually get conversions and run successful campaigns with other types of keywords. So I'm coming at this from I've been humbled perspective, and that's what kind of, that was my impetus to come up with these 8 types of keywords and kind of define them and have them as options as I go about managing Google Ads accounts, trying to find strategies that will get it done for each individual advertiser situation. So from your point of view, we're going to talk about the types of keywords, but Chris, you know them ahead of time because we talked about them. Are you experiencing the same thing? Does the word humble apply to the way you've been feeling about different Google Ads strategies lately? Or is it kind of business as usual the last 6 months to a year? What are keywords like these days in your experience?
Oh, yeah, I absolutely agree with you. It is not a time to hold to your theories and ideas. I mean, here's a good put it in context type of way to say it. Jason, do we even argue anymore with people that SCAGs are a good idea? Do people even bring it to our attention? Do they even send in questions about, hey, you guys don't talk about SCAGs much? People don't even mention that because that whole way of thinking has shifted. It's not around anymore. People don't do it because it absolutely doesn't work. So if that has completely gone by the wayside, then you know that something has shifted internally. And absolutely, we've talked about this before, the change in the keywords. And I think this is a whole new way to frame it. There's people think, well, there's not 8 types of keywords in Google Ads. There's only 3. Well, this is the new way to think about keywords in Google Ads. You have to think outside the box. And if I remember correctly, I think one of our first episodes, like episode 1, 2, 3, 4, something like that, we talked about the level of the funnel. We've been talking about the funnel stuff for a long time, but I bet if you went back and listened, we probably said low funnel means you have.
Hold on, let me speak in your language, Chris. You squat down, you go low on your squat at CrossFit.
Oh boy.
That's low funnel. You're close to your goal. You're right down there where you need to be.
Okay.
You come back up with that weight rack and you're like, oh yeah, I can do 10 more reps of this, but I would never do more than 10 because I got to get that power weight going. Then you're in the high funnel. You kind of get a little lightheaded. You're up there because you've lifted all that weight, and you don't know if you can go back down again. So I'm speaking your language, right? You caveman CrossFit champion.
That
for your weight class and age, definitely your age.
Oh, ouch!
Can't compete with. I would just honestly, I would love to see a YouTube video of you just going into a CrossFit routine, or what do they call it, a circuit or whatever, and just watching you go straight up with a 21-year-old.
Oh gosh!
And just watching the difference in physical performance at those couple.
You were talking about humbling.
I would love to see that.
You were mentioning being humbled. Boy, I'll tell you what. There's a guy at our gym named Colin, and that guy, he's like 22 or something. It's humbling. Just runs sprints around me.
Colin's a doctor or a dietitian, and he helps people stay healthy each week, and he gives them health advice. And he's saying the same thing about you right now. There's a guy at our CrossFit, Chris. Trust me, guys, you don't want to be Chris. You got to eat right. You got to sleep. You got to take care of yourself. I'm just kidding, Chris. You're in great shape.
That hurts.
You're in great shape.
Oh.
You're in great shape. No, but okay. High funnel means they're not searching for exactly what you offer. There's a lot more of those searches. As you get lower in the funnel, there's a lot less searches, but they're spot on to what you want, and they're closer to buying. So we were talking high and low funnel back in the day, you were saying.
Yeah. So no longer do I identify low funnel keywords as exact match keywords. That's not true anymore. The position of the funnel, and we can go in the very first one. What's a good keyword? A good keyword is a low funnel keyword. But what we're trying to do is no longer identify a match type to what that looks like.
Okay.
That's the difference. We have to break apart the association that low funnel means exact match. That low funnel, looks a certain way in Google Ads. We've talked before. Sometimes a low funnel could be a long tail broad match. No pluses.
It could be a loose modified one that's four words, and you just modify one word,
yep.
And that just happens. You wouldn't even think it would be that one word that you need to modify, but doing it just happens to bring in only quality searches for whatever reason, and you don't really find that out till you experiment with a lot of keywords. But good keywords, Chris, or we should say good search terms, good searches, that's low funnel. And those types of searches, no matter how you get them with different match types, those are things where the person's very much likely to convert, or they're at least telling you that with their search for so we're going to go through some examples as we go down the show: criminal defense attorney, a payroll software company, and a moving company. Some examples of low funnel, quote unquote, good keywords that we would think have the highest conversion rates. You would think criminal defense attorney, you could do phrase match, cheap payroll software. That's excuse me, I said that with the word weird cadence, but cheap payroll software. That's someone looking for a cheap payroll software. If you sell that, they're right at the bottom of the funnel. You should have a chance to at least hopefully get a conversion or have the chance of it. And then movers in Chicago. Pretty straightforward. Chris, pros and cons to those. I think it's still pretty simple these days. The pro is that most likely that person does want your service or product, and they're telling you that. So the pro would be hopefully high conversion rates. The con is the cost. Mm-hmm. And as we talked about last week, ad rank and your favorite 3 words, ad rank threshold, sometimes that cost becomes too high for an advertiser, and you have to figure out how to use different keywords to get the cost per conversion right. So pros and cons: high converters, but expensive sometimes. Do they ever give you surprises, like they just don't work for whatever reason?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just looking at an account the other day that was selling batteries. Okay, they're selling batteries, and guess what keyword was just not selling? It was the exact search for the type of battery that the person was selling. It was long. What was the type of battery? Like a long.
We talked about it. We talked about it before the show. My brain fixes problems instantly. You know what the problem is there, Chris? People are looking for the exact term on that battery because they're looking at a set of instructions, and it says you need this battery, and they go, man, what kind of battery is that? And they look up the battery to get a picture of it.
Yep.
So then when they go to the store, so they can get it instantly to fix their device or whatever, they're not going to order that online. That's why it wasn't converting.
Yeah.
You can tell your client.
Yeah. I mean, that was exactly the suggestion that I gave is essentially you're too on the nose. This is a low funnel keyword. This is a very good exact match keyword, but
it's too low funnel. They want it in this exact moment. They're going to the store. They're not ordering it online.
Yeah. Or just like you said, they're looking for a picture of it to confirm what it looks like, or they're just doing some research about what it is because someone mentioned it to them. They're like, oh, I don't know what that is. Deep cycle battery. You're like, what is that for? You got to look it up. You just search it. But a much better search would be, buy deep cycle batteries online, something like that. That is, going to be a much more longer tail type of search, but it's no longer an exact match. You might have that as a modified broad or something like that. So that's a good example.
Now, Chris, I think we both would say low funnel keywords, at least give them a shot when you try out a campaign. And most of the time they'll stick around and have a role in your campaign. It's just all about controlling that cost. So as we move on here, Chris, number 2, high funnel keywords, the exact opposite of low funnel. Just some examples, and then I have a question for you. So for like criminal defense attorney, you can, that's one thing I'm going to ask you is how high you go with your funnel here. But if you're a criminal defense attorney, you could target the word theft phrase match, or more likely, I'd be a little more comfortable with theft laws phrase match, theft laws in Illinois with some modifiers in there. If you're a payroll software company, high funnel, people that aren't looking for your exact product or service, but they're in that funnel somewhere, they're starting their process. Someone could be doing the search average payroll tax cost per employee or something like that. And they're not telling you they want a payroll software, but they might one day, or they might once they see that you offer that. So you might have a word like payroll or payroll taxes phrase match. You might. This is high funnel stuff. And then finally for movers, and this is my question for you, Chris. If I'm working with a mover, and I've never even done this, but if I'm working with one and they want a low cost per click and they want tons of volume and they're sick of paying their cost per click for low funnel stuff only, you could throw on homes for sale phrase match.
Oh, gosh.
And then show up on a...
Wow.
Well, that's what we're going to get to the bottom of here.
Yeah.
You could show up on a search, homes for sale, and then whatever zip code is around you, you could show up because of the homes for sale phrase match keyword. And if you're a moving company, no, they're not looking for a mover at that instant. But if they're looking for a new home, they very well could be in the market for a mover as time goes on, and you could get in front of them. They might just go, hey, yeah, actually, I might need a mover. That's on my to-do list. Let me just get a quote right now. So my question is, Chris, if someone's trying to go high funnel and the benefit of that is a low cost per click, how high are you willing to go? That's pretty high right there. Homes for sale if you're a mover.
I think my rule for high funnel is there is no high funnel that's too high. As long as it's within the arena, I'm okay with it. But what keeps the ceiling in place for me is the budget. So if somebody is selling, let's say we were talking about batteries, you're selling AA batteries, right? You have a little battery store, and you're selling AA batteries in bulk or something. High funnel might just be the word batteries, but you only have a budget of $500, that's a bad idea. You don't have the budget to maintain that type of high funnel stuff. Stop it. You wouldn't want to do it. But if you are a battery store and you're a superstore and you have, $10,000 to work with, lots of inventory. Okay, now you have the ceiling to be able to go up higher and higher and try those things. That's usually how I consider high funnel keywords. I don't go too high if I'm really restricted by budget. It always has to come down to how much money do I have to play with here.
Yeah, I hear you on the $500 a month campaign, and what's the point of leaving low funnel to try something high funnel like that if you can only throw a little budget at it? I would say what's changed with me is if I'm spending $10,000 a month and we have a campaign where maybe there is no budget and the client's like, hey, I just want to keep getting leads for my service company. I want to keep making sales for my e-commerce company. As long as it's profitable cost per conversion, I'm willing to spend anything. So keep growing it, or that, or a high budget. I'm very inclined to do a high funnel test and either control it with very low bids, or like if you're saying the word battery, you probably have to put it in its own campaign with its own budget to actually be able to control things because the volume is so high. I think the one thing that's changed for me lately, Chris, is I'm much more inclined to try a high funnel test and move a portion of the budget to it with a $2,000 to $4,000 budget these days.
Yeah.
Just given what I'm seeing in the accounts, what's working, the different types of search terms, how much Google knows about the user, not just the search. I'm much more inclined to try these high funnel tests with smaller budgets than I used to be. And I'm much more confident that there's actually some gold down there in the riverbed that we could find than I was in the past about high funnel. Maybe Google's getting better, like you put in a word, payroll phrase match, and they see that you're a payroll software company, and you start showing up on searches where someone is inclined to be in the market for that. Maybe that's happening without us knowing. I don't know, but I do see more success with high funnel these days, and I'm much more inclined to try things like that. And I agree with you. How high is too high? Well, I'll let my clients tell me before they work with me.
Yeah.
I get into accounts these days, Chris, and they are running battery phrase match when they're selling unique batteries. They are running payroll taxes broad match when they run a payroll software company. And I see it working sometimes. So as long as you're in the industry, I think there's really, you can't get too high. Yeah. So Chris, a third kind of keyword here, very interesting one. I think in the past we had just written it off because we were like, things are either high funnel or low funnel. But now I think there is actually a role and a defined role for medium funnel. So when I say the word medium funnel, what does that kind of spark for you?
For me, medium funnel is usually going to be having to do with like questions, people that are looking for things like the word best, things like that. Who does this? How to find a financial advisor, local financial advisors, or best financial advisors, something like that. They haven't defined certain things that might be super low funnel, like fee-based financial advisor in London. There's a
right.
There's
or
a low
financial advisors for franchise company owners.
There you go. Stuff like that. That's what a low funnel sounds like. I think you have to define, exactly what low funnel is, because financial advisors near me sounds like a low funnel, but I'd say that's medium. Because if you really think about it, when people define what about that financial advisor they want, that's when it really enters that low funnel. So medium doesn't necessarily define the qualities of what they're looking for. Buy a battery, that's medium funnel. Low funnel would be buy a deep cycle battery for boat.
Right. I think the way I'm defining medium funnel these days is that they're informational searches. They're people seeking out information and not the business you're advertising for. But different than high funnel, they are telling you that they could become potentially a customer of the business you're advertising for. So some examples, criminal defense attorney. If someone does a search like criminal defense attorneys for theft or criminal defense attorneys in Dallas, to me, that's low funnel.
Yeah.
They're looking for exactly who your criminal defense attorney client is.
The word "for" is a big,
right?
Yeah.
And the word in Dallas.
Yep.
Or if that's implied by just the word Dallas. But if they do a search like, how much do defense lawyers cost? That tells me like, hey, maybe you don't want a defense lawyer once you find out how much they cost, and maybe you're not set on getting one, but you're at least open to, you could become a client for my advertiser. Another example would be, what happens if you miss your court date? I'm going to count that as informational and medium funnel and a little more valuable than high funnel, because high funnel would be something like theft laws. Yeah, it could be someone who is accused of that and needs a lawyer, or it could be someone doing research for their college paper. But if someone does a search, what happens if you miss your court date? To me, that implies that most of the time they miss their court date or they're worried about that. And what happens when you have a court date? You probably need a lawyer. So they could become a client for my advertiser. A couple more examples. How to file payroll taxes for the payroll software company. No, you're not searching for a payroll software. You're not searching for a cheap payroll software, which is what my example was, a very cheap, inexpensive one. But you do file payroll taxes. So you could potentially have the need for my client once you saw their advertisement. And then finally, movers. You're not searching for office movers in Dallas. You're not searching for movers in Chicago, but you're searching moving checklist. And that implies to me, oh, you're going to be moving soon. You're not looking for a mover. You're not looking for my advertiser. But if I kind of meet you halfway there and show you that we exist while you do that search, there's a chance you could click the ad and become a lead. But obviously, those conversion rates might be lower than low funnel stuff, but it's all about pros and cons. Those searches are going to be higher volume. They're going to be less expensive, and you can get maybe more conversions and a lower overall cost per conversion if you're open to trying these kinds of medium funnel informational searches. Chris, number 4, pure broad. And to me, when I run a pure broad keyword, I'd say 10% of the time I'm running it to get a good cost per conversion and get conversions. Or I should say 10% of my motivation. 90% of my motivation is to get search term data and find awesome search terms that I can then target as their own keywords. Is that the way you approach it? Or I've heard stories from you where you're running these pure broad keywords and they're the number one keyword in your campaign and bringing on all the conversions and you like them for conversions. So how do you approach pure broad? Are you doing it for leads and sales, or are you doing it for search term data, and what's the mix of your motivations there?
Yeah. So as a 4th keyword type in Google Ads, 4 out of the 8, I wouldn't say that pure broad is necessarily a keyword type that we want to discuss. I think specifically using pure broad for the purpose of sampling outside of your normal funnel, right? So you've defined what high funnel is. We've defined what medium funnel is and low funnel. Now what we're saying is things that you wouldn't think of other ways. This
show me every freaking search in the entire funnel.
Like
please
go crazy
and let me pick some out.
Try something. This is designed to help cover the things that you don't know. Right? You can't come up with keywords that you don't even know exist or that people are searching for. This is to cover your base on those things. So that's
no matter where they are in the funnel. A lot of the times you're going to miss high funnel because there's so many of them. Mm-hmm. But pure broad can also expose you to low funnel stuff that you just didn't think about or missed.
And if you're scared of that, or you say, well, I don't do that. That's not the way my campaign runs. Go back and listen to old episodes. Search on our podcast list for times that we talked about match type, pure broad, using broad match like a pro. There was another one in November that we did that we talked about.
And listen to the change, the way we talk about it over time.
Yeah.
It's become more and more of a thing we do, not just to lower cost per click, not just to get more volume, but to actually go, hey, I did my keyword research, but now I want this awesome tool called a pure broad keyword. When I control the cost to the way I want it, to do all this keyword research for me and tell me what people are searching out there.
Yep.
It's become a major part of my strategy often, Chris.
Now, this next one, this one's all you. Number 5. I have nothing to say. I will open it up for you, but Jason has number 5, other languages.
Tú tienes hablar nada. Tú tienes hablar nada. You have nothing to say.
Nada.
You freaking worthless bum. You freaking worthless bum. That's Spanish for freaking worthless bum.
That's what I prefer.
No, I'm kidding with you, Chris. Tú tienes hablar nada. You have nothing to say.
Yeah.
Yo tengo, pero, but, yo tengo hablar mucho. I have lots to say.
Wow. You do.
Chris, there's a lot of searches in this country for Spanish keywords, people doing searches in Spanish. And I don't even want to don't even want to know what your browser is set to or your Chrome settings or anything like that. How many people do you think actually, who are predominantly Spanish speakers at home or whatever, actually go to their Chrome settings like the average person can access that? Of course not. Older people on their phone, give me a break. People just search what they search in Google, okay? So I don't want to hear about Chrome settings or language settings or that. It's about the search to me these days. And if you look at the settings inside the Google Ads account, English, Spanish, whatever language, I'm pretty sure I'm backed up by that they say, hey, it's not about the settings anymore. It's just what we think the person searches or what we think the person knows. But when it comes to specifically keywords, there's a lot of people doing Spanish keyword searches in this country. There's a lot of people in different parts of the country. I think New York City and parts of Florida doing Russian searches. And then I think a lot of New York City, and then on the West Coast, a lot of searches in Chinese. And you can take that down to other languages, I'm sure to a much lesser extent get searched for in this country. But to me, those are the big three non-language ones: Spanish, Russian, and Chinese. And I don't have experience with Russian or Chinese, but I've got a lot of experience with Spanish. And all I'm telling you, Chris, is it's a real thing. Okay.
Sure.
Like there are a ton of searches in Spanish to the point where in different parts of the country, the volume from them, it somewhat rivals the English campaign.
Wow.
And you can get the beautiful thing about them is you get lower cost per clicks because they're less competitive. You get higher click-through rates because you got the Spanish ad and a couple other people have English ads. They did the search in Spanish or whatever, and they see your ad. Sometimes there's less ads. You get a better click-through rate. And then the conversion rates are real, Chris, because if someone is dependent on the advertiser, the business they're looking for, speaking that language, in this case Spanish, as opposed to just English, there's less businesses that speak both. And if you are one that speaks Spanish and can help them in Spanish, that conversion rate's going to be higher. Yeah. So I've really enjoyed running Spanish campaigns. It's one of my specialties, and I'm sure there's people that do it with other languages in different parts of the country. But it should, if you're a Google Ads manager and you're running in a part of the country where the volume is high there, you really should take a look at that, and it really should be part of the way you think about keywords. And it's not that hard to make those campaigns and those keyword searches, at least for me. But it's definitely one of the types of keywords, other languages. Number 6 and 7 here, Chris, kind of the inverse of each other. Competitor keywords and brand keywords. What is your temperature on those these days?
Very polarizing topics here for me. I know we've talked about competitor. They come up all the time in client conversations and coaching sessions that I do. Competitor keywords, I think, are useful as long as, and I'm going to go back to number 2 here. I like to consider competitor searches as an option if you have the budget to sustain something like that. I do not think you $500, $1,000 campaigns out there a month should be sampling in things like this unless you have a very high search impression share. Unless you're covering your market already and you're just looking to try and take a bite out of other things, I don't think that it's something that too many people should be dabbling in. And to give you a preview, if you're not part of the patron group, I'm going to bring something like this up in a topic that we're going to discuss in the patron group. So be sure and join up there because there's something that I read this week that I think is really interesting. So competitors, I think, very polarizing. I don't typically like them unless I have the budget for it. And then when it comes to brand is very polarizing because it can be so often abused. If you have brand keywords, and what I mean by that is the company's name. If the company is XYZ Producers and XYZ Producers is showing up in your search terms all over the place, you're doing brand searches, but you're doing it the wrong way. You should always contain your brand searches. No question. No question at all. If you're doing brand, it should be done in the same way that you do competitor. It should be controlled. It should be in its own campaign, and you should be able to monitor the success of it and make sure it's not overwhelming the other true advertising aspects. I would say that brand can be just as much of a waste as advertising on a competitor. That's a pretty strong statement, but I think it's true.
Wow. I would say competitor, very often it does not work, very often, but then sometimes it does. And it's one of those things, it's always like a secondary factor for me, just like you're saying, Chris. You want to get straightforward. You want people that aren't tied to someone else or have someone else in their mind. You want a chance at just a clean relationship, and they're very much open to you. If they're searching for a competitor, they're searching for the competitor for a reason, and already right off the bat, you're starting in kind of like negative territory because they weren't searching for you. So that's why it fails often. But I would say, like for the example with the payroll software, there's a lot of situations in different industries where it does make sense. So like, maybe there's a payroll software that everyone knows people are like very, very unhappy with, and they've been waiting for some kind of new solution to come out that where they could switch. And maybe finally you're that solution, and the conversion rate would actually be high from that because it's a unique situation. So I would say competitor depends on the unique situation. Brand, I like brand, but Chris, king of metaphors here, you cook the steak on the outside, but the steak is still not done enough on the inside. That's what can happen when brand
that's good.
covers up your overall data. Isn't that good?
That's good.
So you think you're getting a 4% click-through rate, and you're like, man, we're getting 4% click-through rates. Our ads are awesome. This is helping our quality scores, blah, blah, blah. No, your brand's getting a 35% click-through rate. Your search campaign is getting a 0.2% click-through rate because you have horrible keywords, but all you do is look at your campaign page. Mm-hmm. So it's like the outside of the steak is done, but once you dig in there. So brand, it's effective. It works. It's a keyword type every brand should consider, every company, but don't let it ruin your campaign by covering up and mixing in with the regular campaigns. Keep it to its own thing so you don't distort your data. I agree with you on that, Chris. Now, we do have one more. It's a trap.
Oh, boy.
It's the worst one.
You guys got to hear it.
A lot of people who think they're smart, but they're really not smart people, and smart people actually know when people think they're smart, but they're not smart.
Yeah.
And we just look at them and just laugh. This is the kind that traps those kind of people when they think they're outsmarting the system, and they really literally don't get anything for it. So we'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah. Let me guys tell you about George. George is a smart guy. He manages about 6 to 8 campaigns for clients in Google Ads. He's starting out on his own. He's learning to manage Google Ads. He's got a couple agencies he's working with, a couple of his own clients, and he's starting to work well. George is starting to have issues with time management. George's solution is to go to optio.com/PSP2. This is the tool for people like George. If you understand George's issue of a growing business, if you too are a freelancer like Jason and I, and you have issues with time management on Google Ads, you don't know what to check. You don't know how often you should check it. You don't know about statistical analysis about, should I consider this to be significant? Should I make the change now? Should I wait? How often do I change the ad copy? Should I change the bids now? Should I pause this keyword? These are all questions that will be delivered to you in a gorgeous red box with an orange bow. They have really bad taste in colors, but don't worry about the color. They do great software. So try out optio.com/PSP2 for an 8-week free trial.
All right, Chris, we're experts in our field. We do the same thing for years and years, and it works for us. But you know what? We're so elevated. We're so good at what we do. We're flexible. We're open to new things. That's why we talk about pure broad keywords these days. That's why we talk about responsive ads. That's why we talk about automated bidding sometimes. We are open to things that work, and we're very good at that. But there's something that never has worked, and it still doesn't, and it still gets preached by people, and we're still not using it because it doesn't work. Yep. And we're right about this one still. And this is long tail keywords in Google Ads. They don't work.
Nope.
And I specifically, this keyword match type is called low search volume status keywords, or not match type. This keyword type, the 8th one, I'm literally talking here, Chris, about low search volume keywords
Big red
that
text.
get hit with that status that aren't allowed to show. You go to the status column, they don't show up. Now, Chris, generally, what types of keywords get hit with that low search volume status?
Yeah, it's going to be
long tail,
phrase match,
super long tail.
Exact.
I'm not
match.
talking office movers in Chicago. Super long tail.
Affordable office movers for dentists in Chicago. Like somebody who thinks, listen, I want to do moving for medical, but specifically I want to reach out to dentists because I did one move and it worked really well. So I think dentist is my specialty. So will you advertise me to dentists for moving services? Low search volume. Fail. Then guess what? Phase 2 of that, they're going to bring in the steamroller of quality score and smash you to nothing because they hate your keywords. They think this is a dumb idea too, and they're going to hint at it by dropping lots of 1s and 2s on your quality score. And then you get frustrated and you think Google Ads doesn't work and you stomp out. And it's because you chose bad keywords from the beginning.
And Chris, one of the things I do, because I'm very empathetic and I'm very able to put myself in the other person's position and mind and all that kind of stuff. When I think about Google, I think about their motivation as a business. And Google's there to make money, but they're there to make money by helping people accomplish what they want with their searches. That's capitalism, help people make money. Mm-hmm. But one thing they're not in the business of is giving away all their know-how and all the tax on their system. So every time we put in a keyword, a long tail keyword like that, and put a bid on it and an ad associated with it and all that kind of stuff, it's another little piece of their server cost and cloud expense or whatever, electricity, whatever, that we are taxing them on. They have a cost associated every time we put in a keyword. And if you add up that cost for one little long tail keyword that's not going to get any searches, and the way that messes up their algorithm, the new lines of code that they have to pay someone to add to factor in this search that gets searched for one time a month in the metro area of Chicago, it's just not worth it for them when every other advertiser in town is willing to just be a little more open than that super long tail search. And so that's why I don't think they allow those kind of super long tail searches in their system, because it's all downside for them, costs associated with it, changing their code and all that kind of stuff. And the upside of it, getting your ad to show on that one search a month, there's no upside for it because other people's ads are going to show on that search because of broad match, because of phrase match, because of shorter keywords. So it's like no more revenue for them and a lot more cost. And it's like, you think about one little word for one person. No, that's not a big cost, but you have to think about things from Google's perspective. Millions and millions of people stuffing their account with garbage long tail keywords every single day. I think they finally just said, no, like we've got to draw the line somewhere. And they've drawn it with super long tail keywords. They get hit with low search volume status. Worst part is for people, they do that search and they see other people's ads. And they're like, how come they get to show?
Right.
It's because they're running other keywords. Yep. So anyway, Chris, I think that triggered something for you.
Yeah, I imagined little tiny Jason. Just take Jason normal size, shrink him down to like the size of an ant, right? That's you going, hey guys, mm-hmm. Google Ads doesn't do this for you. And then I see Google stomping in, boom, 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 massive, mountain size. They're like, thanks, little tiny Jason. We don't really need you to defend us. We're going to do what we're going to do. But there's Jason.
I know, Chris. I know, but I have a big ego. And also, I'm trying, like I just do this naturally. I try to understand the other person's perspective. And ever since I made that switch on Google Ads, like, okay, what's good for Google? How would Google look at this situation, cost and benefit wise? It's helped me navigate Google Ads accounts and get,
That's true.
It's
just funny.
Great performance.
It's just funny to hear you defend Google, and Google's like, huh?
I defend the interest of my clients. That is the only thing I'm concerned with. In another life, Chris, I want to be a lawyer that just defends people that other people won't defend, and just be like, my sole interest is defending my client and his rights.
All right, guys, we are closing the curtain.
Chris, I'm going to defend you from a horrible outro right now. You're my client. I'm going to defend you from stepping into that and sounding like a complete idiot on the internet. I'm going to block you from stepping into this trap.
It makes people sign up.
I'm going to block you.
They want to see behind the curtain.
I'm going to protect you from doing you know what? Sometimes
fine, you do it.
Clients are stubborn. No. Sometimes clients are stubborn. They don't listen to your advice. You try to protect them, and then they go out there and they do a stupid outro. So go ahead, Chris.
Okay.
Give us that great outro. Get people to sign up for Patreon. Here we go. No pressure.
Here we go. See you next week.